Welcome, everybody. I am Jason Sisneros, also known as the Bald Avenger, the tattooed guru, king of the Misfit Nation, and a legend, Pastor Rudy, in my own mind. Okay? So we have to kick that in there. Also, the founder of Anton J Global and current chairman. And it's a company where we help good people make more money so that they can get more time. And couldn't be a better guest for us tonight. And especially on this subject, but this gentleman that's sitting next to me, those of you that don't know him, is Pastor Rudy Gonzales, and he runs an organization called SERT Ministries, S-E-R-T, Search, Evangelize, Rescue, and Train, and Christian-based. And basically what we do is go out and find the lost. Yeah. Little girls, little boys that have been taken and want to be used by bad guys in the human trafficking world. So tonight, I thought no better guest to have on than him. He's one of my heroes, one of my personal heroes in life, somebody that I respect greatly. And there's a little bit of a perspective. I mean, everybody knows kind of what's going on in the world. We see riots, we see, peaceful protests. Then we see those peaceful protests hijacked by people and turned into violent riots. And I've had some great conversations like we did last night about what that means. And, we're going to get into a little bit of that tonight. But I titled this, "What's Funny About Civil War?" The answer, generally speaking, is it comes afterwards. It becomes funny afterwards, right? Like with the perspective and blessing of time going by and being able to. By the way, those are dogs you definitely never want to have come after you, barking in the background. We did some bite training today, and these dogs will rip your arms off. So my ear pricks up when I hear them barking a little bit too loud. I'm like, who are they biting? So anyway, coming at you tonight from the When and If Ranch. And why don't you let everybody know a little bit about your history and kind of what you did that led you to being full-time in SERT Ministries.
So I'm a former reconnaissance Marine. Went in straight out of high school. And to date myself, I'm about 51 years old now. So that was way back when. Did 4 years in the Marine Corps, got out and went straight into law enforcement, and spent some time doing law enforcement, then moved into private security. But in the meantime, I had a radical change in my life to where I became a pastor. And I could never see myself as being that skinny jean, frosted hair, guy up on the stage. Not that I wouldn't look good with frosted hair.
It's kind of frosted.
Right? Yeah, kind of frosted. It's like all frosted.
Natural frosted.
Yeah. But I couldn't see myself as that mega church pastor. It just didn't fit. And, for me, I'm a relational person. And anytime our church got more than 150 people, I thought, how am I going to have a relationship with more than 150 people? Like, how are you going to do that? Like, How can you have that personal shepherding relationship? And it would make me nervous. And I remember praying and asking the Lord, what kind of church would you have me have? And he said, go where the church isn't. And that was definitely in the world of the lost, the ones that, and just specifically to us, lost in that world of sexual exploitation. And not just sex trafficking, but sexual exploitation. And we've been doing this for about 15 years. And we moved to Africa, worked with an organization called Samaritan's Purse. So I worked as a security director for East Africa and the Middle East. And when we came back to the United States, we just tried to figure out where we were going to settle. And we ended up here in Southern California. And just recently here in another part of Southern California to a beautiful 19-acre ranch that we can train on. Jason got to get put through the paces a little bit today with us. And got to see our guys. And it's really neat to see what has become of this ministry, not only for the people that we get to go out and rescue, or we don't really rescue anybody. We can get in that later, but the people that we go out and help, or just what happens in the lives of the guys that Jason got to hang out with today, and getting to hear like Frankie, one of the guys that's an operator, had given a testimony that he had never before being a part of this ministry, nobody had ever told him that they loved him.
Mm.
So you think about that, and that's just like something that's just
And he's
insane.
almost what? He's 35
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So that's kind of us.
Yeah.
Where we're at.
And I remember meeting Frankie for the first time, and you definitely, it's like, it's again, it plays into so much that's happening in the world where we're not supposed to judge each other by what we see immediately. Right. And you see him and you could get an immediate impression, so to speak. Right. Yeah. But then you talk to him for 5 minutes and you know the work that he does and you know his heart and how he is for his family and what he's dedicated to his life. Just like 5 minutes of getting to know somebody, I've instantly fell in love with him. Yeah. I was like, dude, you're my man. Like, he's an amazing human being. And you could go through everybody. I mean, I remember watching, and that's why I want you all to hear me tonight when we're talking about this Civil War thing, because that's what we're being driven to by outside forces that want to see us hate each other. And anybody that's following me or watching me or listening to anything that I have to say, I'm yelling at the top of my lungs that we don't hate each other as a people. Right? That it's being stoked by media. It's being stoked by politicians that have given up on coming up with good ideas that improve people's lives because they just want to be reelected. And we as a people have allowed that to metastasize in Washington, D.C., where you're supposed to go. It's supposed to be a sacrifice to serve in the government. And you're supposed to set no laws against yourself and then return back to public life. It's supposed to be a sacrifice. And now what you see, Benjamin Franklin said that if you go to Washington, D.C., if you go into public life poor and you come out rich, you stole, right? And so we've seen a lot of that they just want to keep their power. They want to keep their seat. They want to keep that ability to be able to do things that we can't do, like insider trading and all of the laws now that they've passed that we have to follow, but they don't. And I see what's happening. You don't hear so much, especially out of one party. You don't hear solutions coming out. What you hear is hate the man in the office. Everybody's racist. And my experience has not been that we are a racist people. We go out on these missions. The people that we're training with, white, Hispanic, black. The people that we're rescuing, white, Hispanic, black, Asian. There's a huge mixture. And in order to do the work that Pastor Rudy does, there's an enormous amount of love that has to come from your core, because the places that he's seen, the places that I've seen, the places that we've been to see the things that we've seen, done to these children and to the families that they've been taken from, it's heartbreaking and it's thankless. The entire team. We just took a team picture today. I can't show it. I can't show these guys' faces. Right? Pastor Rudy puts his face out there as the face of the organization. I do it because I don't care. Look, at the end of the day, I was given gifts, right? I was given gifts and I was given a blessing of a life. I was able to come up. I was able to be given empathy. I've been given a lot in my life. And this entire process has been interesting, Pastor Rudy, and I want you to talk to this or speak to this, is that when you speak out and you see evil is evil, right? George Floyd's death, that was evil. Then burning somebody else's property down, stealing from them, killing Captain David Dorn during a robbery for over a television. Those things are wrong too. And we're seeing moral equivalency where people are like, well, of course they're burning stuff down. Of course they're tearing things down. No, that's not right. And right is right. And being held to a higher standard actually makes you a better person. And I just want you to speak to that in multiple countries. We were coming on here and you said, I've actually been in some civil wars. And I want you to talk to that a little bit.
It's interesting when you think about a civil war and I didn't have any time to prepare for this or even look it up. And I wanted to see what the actual definition of what a civil war is. And it's a war amongst the population or a country's own population.
Okay.
Right? So it's people of one country fighting within each other. If it's another country fighting another country, it's either an invasion or it's a border incursion, right? So, like we've invaded Iraq. We invaded Kuwait after Iraq invaded Kuwait, right? We invaded Afghanistan. You know, those are invasions. They're not a civil war. There can be situations in a civil war where, you know, another country comes and backs, you know, one side or the other. And we've seen that in our own history. But when you see what's going on here, it is something, I think you spoke to it really well, about politicians being, man, they're lazy because they're not coming up with new ideas, or the ideas that are new maybe are dangerous to their constituents, right? The people that are already giving them money or have supported their campaign, and they could never go against that. Because, like, who wouldn't want healthcare for everyone?
Right.
But it's just
sounds great.
It sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, like, how would it not, like, it's just not, hasn't worked throughout history.
The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money.
Right. And that's the problem. Yeah. Something like socialism, which in its own, you know, theory, as it's, you know, on the cover of it. But like, I mean, you said with my experience, I've been to a lot of communist countries, and I've seen a lot of very hurting people because of something where somebody wanted everyone to be and have the same thing. Like, it doesn't work. Just the richer get multiple, you know, way richer than everything else.
Right.
And then it just doesn't work out.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one, because for me, being a pastor, you know, I'm going to take it to a biblical standpoint and know that in the Bible it says in the end times there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. I mean, do we have that right now?
We do.
Absolutely. Probably more so. I mean, we could say we've had that even in the last 20 years, but more so right now. Like on every continent, just about. Yeah. At the same time. Yep. Without it being a world war. Like, we just see so much pain. And with what's happening here, like, I don't think we're taking what we have. It's like a kid wielding a gun. We're taking our freedom and we're acting like so stupid that other countries are watching, and now they're doing the same thing. Like, I was watching in Guadalajara, police officers being set on fire because now it's drifted over there. And, you know, Guadalajara has less black people than we do. Right. So it's not a Black Lives Matter issue. Right. It's just now I don't have and I want, so I'm going to do everything to try to take it instead of work for it.
It sounds great. I mean, it sounds great. Look, you took one of the third most successful economy in the world, right down in Venezuela, not too many years ago. Yeah. Not too many years ago. And then then Hugo Chavez comes to power, and he starts looking around and he's like, well, this is kind of peaceful. How do I really garner power for myself? Right. Well, what he did was he made it just like is happening in this country right now. He made it a economic thing. Look at all the rich people. Yeah. Right. Look at all which he was one of. Right. He didn't come from that, but he got into power that way and pitted people against each other. And then they thought, yes, here's what we need to do. We need to take the wealth of the oil. We need to take the wealth of the wealthy. We need to give that to the government because they're going to take better care of us. They're going to spread that wealth out and give me something that I didn't earn. Right. And we see what's happening. You literally see people having to kill zoo animals to feed their family. Yeah. You have people rushing across the border to get out of the country. And so that is how socialism, communism, what I see happening right now is Marxism in this country, really. Marxism where you tell lies about the other side and there's people on the outside pulling the strings like puppet masters and getting us to be angry at each other. It's easy in this country to say, look at that person, they're black. Look at this person, they're white. You are different and therefore you hate each other or you're angry with each other. I don't see it. You know what I mean? Like, I've been doing shows with just tons of my black brothers and sisters. I've been doing shows just to show that at the end of the day, even people that I don't know that would look through some of my stuff online and say, you know what, I kind of hate that guy because I'm speaking truth to the idea that if we all put down our arms and stepped in and gave each other a hug, the people that are in power and that are separating us, they won't know what to do. right? Nobody's going to watch CNN if we're all getting along. Nobody's going to watch Fox News if we're not getting along. Nobody's going to vote. They're going to actually start looking at the fact that people went into government rich or poor and are coming out rich. And they're going to start to say things like, why don't we have term limits, right? And then you start to see a loss of power. You're going to see, you know what? There's too many laws that you guys don't have to follow that we do. Why don't we make that fair, right? There's going to be this awakening. And I believe, like I solidly believe in my heart and soul that people are starting to see through this. This may be our one opportunity for us to see and look at history and not repeat it. And so that's why I'm out yelling and screaming as loud as I can. We don't hate each other. We don't hate each other. There's no reason to hate each other.
But I think what the dangerous thing is, I mean, this is what we have to be careful of, is the true racists seizing a moment and an opportunity to try to make things worse
on both sides.
On both sides, yeah. But I mean, we can put the bad place. Let's say the hidden white supremacists,
right?
That really have kind of receded back into the prison system. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
But there are some of those guys that are purely evil and believe the punch that they've been drinking, right?
Right.
I mean, being in law enforcement, I've dealt with a lot of those guys. And it was funny because I was thinking about all the times I've ever been like challenged with a use of force issue or anything as a police officer. It was always a white person. For me anyway, that's what I ran into is it was always that. But I lived in an area where, there were more white people than any other than Hispanics. There were a lot of Hispanics, but it's kind of interesting when you think about that because they're going to take the opportunity and there's going to be one or two of those situations where they're going to show up and they're going to say, see? Yeah. And then it's going to become somewhat real.
Right.
But what's interesting is the whole idea of this shaming that's come upon people to make them feel bad for who they are or anything else. Like I just saw that California is trying to pass legislation that during your background investigation as a police officer, that you can have nobody throughout your entire genealogy that was ever a part of a white supremacist group. So either the Nazi Party, KKK,
200 years ago.
200 years ago. Like if you 200 years ago, your great grandfather was part of the Ku Klux Klan, you can never be a law enforcement officer in the state of California.
Wow. And that assignment of, because you see it on both sides. We're supposed to, if you have white skin and I'm a mixed race, right? You're Hispanic and
mixed. I'm actually half German.
Oh, half German.
Yeah.
No wonder you're so stubborn. So
that's it.
But you see this where now you bring it forward and you lay it on people and you say, okay, you've got to be guilty for something that your family did 200 years ago. And on the other side, you're owed something because of what happened to your family from 200 years ago. And it's an odd place to be. If it's something I didn't do, then I'm not guilty of it, right?
Yeah.
And then you have all the conversations, like you say, a lot of the crime happens. There's a lot of crime in the white neighborhood, and that community kind of abandons their criminals, right? They abandon them. In the Hispanic community, as a matter of fact, they abandon their criminals to the law, so that they can be punished. And then you run into a lot of situations right now where criminals in that community are lauded as heroes. And so it's this mixture of things. And this is what makes it so difficult. And even having this conversation and saying what I just did makes me controversial, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to speak about the truth of what's going on, or it cannot be dealt with.
Yeah.
That's my play. I'm a business guy. If we allow problems to fester and we don't deal with a bad employee, or we don't deal with a bad owner, or we don't deal with a bad financial guy, or we don't build relationship, or there's sexual harassment, if you don't deal with that company will eventually be gone. And if we're busy in this country dealing with problems that aren't, because we're so hyper focused on what the media and what the government is telling us to do, how do we solve the actual problem?
I don't know if they want a solution.
They don't. They want it. It's every 4 years. It's predictable.
And this is the hard part is, what do we do then? Because there's really not, like, the list of demands that go forward, it's like almost, it's bunny rabbits and rainbows. It's almost unachievable.
Right.
And that's one of the difficult things, like abolishing the police department.
Right.
Like, let's get rid of the police department. What's going to happen is that's not going to be where, social workers are going to talk their way through. What they're going to do is they're going to hire guys like me to protect the ultra wealthy.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like LAPD, when they cut, was it $1.5 billion
right out of the budget,
out of their budget, they didn't cut all of the command staff's personal security.
No, of course not.
So those guys are all going to be running around fully, their families are taking care of everything else. But the poor neighborhoods, you think that they're going to take that $1.5 billion and put it into social services? They are. But what are those social services going to do for that community?
Right. Yeah, because because change takes time.
It
right?
does.
And if you're going to put $1.5 billion in, it's going to take some time. And in the meantime, what you see happen right now, what is it, 450% spike in violence right now in LA? Yeah. Right? And that violence is not going to be happening in the rich neighborhoods because there's going to be private security. Just like you say, I'm calling you up, right? Make sure that there's 15 machine guns surrounding my house, right? And I'm inside, ordering, instead of going to Starbucks, I'm ordering it to have it delivered. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's exactly what's happening, y'all. And so, I guess we're going down a little bit of a path that I wasn't expecting to, but you ask, what do we do, right? And what we do is we raise our voices. When you see wrong, you call wrong. And I don't, and I'm seeing that more and more. And what happens is when somebody in the black community says, you know what, this stuff is wrong, they get called racist. And I don't understand that. Like they're getting called racist for saying that looting and burning is wrong. And then anybody white that opens their mouth right now is under attack because you don't understand the black experience and you're automatically racist because we need an enemy.
So I got a solution.
Okay,
let's talk about solutions.
Let's talk about the world's problems. Let's do it right now,
right? Because we could be another group of guys that just gets on a camera and complains about stuff. Yep. But let's talk about solutions. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I've learned is no matter how ridiculous somebody is, it's their truth. Mm-hmm. So let's look at that. If we have an entire community that is believing that they are oppressed, and that there is white privilege, it does no good for us to go in there and say, no, there's not. Because you know what it does? It causes a fight. Right. And then there's civil war. Because then it's two people sitting here and trying to bang heads. Yep. Right? Yeah. So you look at their truth and then you try to speak through it. And that's one of the cool things. We've always heard this and it's super cheesy. But God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Right? Mm-hmm. So we listen twice as much as we do before. And what I like to do, and what I learned from being a street cop, is I let somebody exhaust themselves. Because I got nothing but time. Right. That's what you're there to do. Right. Right. But we don't let it become lawlessness. Mm-hmm. So let them speak and let them be heard, because that's one of the most important things, is people need to be heard, especially when they're hurt. And hurt people hurt people. So we've got a community that's obviously hurt. Yep. And that pain that they're feeling, whether it was of that own community's doing. Yeah. Right? Because we can talk about Chicago and Detroit all day long, and that more black men are killed by black men than ever by the police or somebody else, right? So it's a hurting community. That community is oppressed. It just, we could argue all day who's doing the oppressing. Right. Right? But the fact is, that's horrible. Their murder rate is up. Their recidivism rate back into prison is high, all of those different types of things. So how do we give them a voice to be heard, but also counsel and love them through a proper decision? Yeah. Because that's where you have like successful cops that go into neighborhoods and like are bold enough to sit and listen. Right? Because what I loved about when I came up, and we have gotten away from that, like being a former cop, and, I support and back the blue all day long, but I do start to get worried as a United States citizen towards how militarized our police departments are getting. Yeah. True. It is kind of scary, right? It's scary that the IRS has a SWAT team. Right. It's scary. That scares me. Yeah. That shouldn't be. The IRS should not have a SWAT team. Right. So how do we get and start to change things back to community-oriented policing to where we can hear, listen, and then start to change lives.
Yeah.
Which I think is important.
It's a great question and it's a great solution. But you can't do that by demonizing the entire police force. You've got, 2 SWAT teams that walked away down in Florida. They're just like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody understands if you're abused so long, you're just going to go find something else to do. And that's the trouble that I see. And because again, I had my problems with the police coming up. Right. Like that was, everybody doesn't realize that I used to have lots of run-ins with law enforcement. But now I watch, right. A large group of our team is ex-military, ex-police officers. And I see the love in their heart. I see the caring. I see them going into dark, nasty places that nobody else will go. Right. And watching one of the biggest white dudes that you have on your team, standing there guard, and a little black girl saying, it's so cold out there, why are you doing this? And he said, it's seared into my memory. And he said, little girl, he goes, baby girl, we love you. We've been looking for you for a while, and having her break down that people in her own family had damaged her, and then you having the conversation with her and saying, I'm sorry for what all men have done to you. There are good men in the world, right? Given that, and then your wife giving her a Bible, and your daughters putting their arms around her. And
so think if we did the same thing, like
yes.
This is it. So This is the problem, is we do have issues in law enforcement.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that we're okay to say that.
Yep.
Like I feel comfortable enough that I support my brothers and my sisters that still wear the badge. Mm-hmm. They would agree. Yeah. And nothing makes a good cop more angry than a bad cop.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes them all look bad.
It does. It makes everybody look bad, and then we all have to carry through and toe that line. Yep. So what we need to do is we need to set, it's the same, like what if we were to take what you just said mm-hmm. and apply that to Atlanta right now?
Right.
Like what if we as a United States government, like Trump, were to call the Atlanta police and say, you know what? I've got your back.
Right.
I love you guys. I'm going to give you whatever resources so that you can hold that line.
Yep.
And what I want you to do is I want to keep the city from burning.
Yep.
So you're going to stand strong,
mm-hmm.
but you're not going to get tired and you're not going to abuse power.
Right.
Right? Because what's going to happen is these guys are working 18-hour shifts and they're going to get angry and somebody's going to slip because they're human.
Right.
And then that's going to be the next video that comes out.
Yes.
And they're going to say, see, I told you. So what we have to do is we have to almost take and look as if that population of Atlanta was that little girl that we recovered.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you have to get on your knees.
Yep.
But you can say, I'm really sorry for what you saw this one police officer do,
right.
but I'm not him.
Right.
But I'm not going to let you go burn this building.
Right.
I'm going to stand here and you're going to have to go through me to make that happen.
That's right.
Right? And hold that.
Yep.
But like what we saw in Seattle of them just give up and give them the city.
Yeah.
Then what we're doing is we're giving out participation awards.
Right.
And we're letting everybody just, the naughtiest kid in class is getting all the attention.
That's right.
Because if we think about it, I mean, put this in perspective because the news isn't.
Yeah.
All the people, like we could have 40,000 people in downtown LA.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount, right?
That's a large amount. Yep.
But it's not more than one single Angels game.
Right. Right.
It's not the entire United States. It's
Yeah.
not all of LA.
Yeah.
It's not the hundreds of millions of people that occupy Los Angeles. It's a speck on the radar. But they're getting all of the entire, so not everybody feels this way.
And you take that 40,000 people and you filter out all of the people who want to cause conflict. Yep. Because there's people in that audience that are posing as peaceful protesters that want to foment that. They're pushing, they're like, making sure that bricks are being thrown at our men and women in blue. They're making sure that they're breaking windows. They're the ones that are lighting the fires. And if everybody that was peaceful stepped back, right? Step back all at once. Then what you leave is the small amount of people that are causing all of the conflict.
Yeah.
Because the people that are peacefully protesting should be able to that's what you fought for,
yep.
Right? That's what I fight for. That's what the police officers fight for. That's what good Americans, do.
But and look at how a peaceful protest can now affect major change.
Right.
Because like Minneapolis, where this all started,
yeah,
the whole thing was coming down to we're getting rid of the police department.
Right.
Right. And
yep.
they came forward and they put that as a decree,
yeah.
and they're abolishing the police department.
Right.
So you know what the truckers union said? we are not bringing any supplies into Minneapolis unless there's the police.
Right. Yeah. That's the right way.
So that's the best protest that I saw out of anything, because that's going to make people think.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Instead of going down and like defacing property and taking away from a store owner and doing all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, get creative, man.
Get creative.
Because this isn't going to do anything except for cause damage to somebody that didn't deserve it in the first place.
Yeah, and again, the greater portion of Americans, and I put something up that was kind of snarky on my Facebook the other day, but I was like, look, the reason why I can instantly fall in love with people is because most of them aren't jerks, right? Most good people are good people. And there's a lot of hurt, and Misfit Nation, why it's so powerful and why it's so close to my heart is it's full of a bunch of people that have made mistakes before, right? And they came in and it started with one person, me and Rayanne, right? And I loved Rayanne through her pain. And then she loved somebody, and then it turned into 15, then it turned into 30, and then it turned into 500. And now it's sort of a worldwide group of people that do nothing more than set their true north in life for easing suffering. And if everybody could set that as an objective, rather than, Jason, I need to regurgitate my entire pain examples, right? Everybody I talk to, white, Hispanic, black, everybody's got their one story, right? One, maybe three, but they've got 1 to 3 stories where they're like, here's what happened to me, and that's why I'm doing the things that are harmful to myself.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's ultimately what we do when we hate other people, when we react, when we do those things. We're doing damage to ourselves. When we're burning down our businesses, you see Minneapolis, companies moving out like crazy, right? Cops quitting like crazy. The truckers union saying, we're not sending people into our trucks into there. No. They're going to get jumped on and get our drivers pulled out and beat up. Are you kidding me? Right? So the solution is for more of us to stand up and call wrong. Wherever we see it, because we can't be like, okay, I'm a Democrat, I can't call the killing of Captain David Dorn wrong because now that's going to do damage to my side, right? I can't stand up and I can't say that the looting and the burning is wrong because it may make me appear racist. And then on the Republican side, you can't look at what happened with the police officer, which nobody did. 300 million people in this country instantaneously saw something and thought it was wrong. Right? Instantaneously. And then immediately everybody was like, oh my God, this actually might unify people. And you saw the media from both sides, and the Republicans and the Democrats, they dove in to a country that was unified around a universal wrong that was seen by our eyes. And the problem and the challenge that we run into, and I wrote something that I want to say here, and I want to get it exactly right, is that when your eyes are telling you something and your brain switches it around to fit another narrative, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
We're in trouble.
Well, you know what? The devil is the prince of power of the air. And what he does is he takes from something I say, and by the time it hits your ear, it gets twisted. And so I would almost challenge you to think about this. I'm going to give you something to chew on.
Yes, I love things to chew on.
You know how right now it's silence is violence?
Yes. Maybe
that's the violence we need then. I was thinking about this the other day, because you and I could take, and remember, somebody's truth. What if at this point our protest was not to speak out?
And to just shut up.
And just let it, I'll give you an example. We were looking for a missing girl. This will be a quick one. We're looking for a missing girl in Las Vegas. And of course, this missing girl came from a broken family. And so when we got the mom and the dad who were estranged together, man, they went at each other. And the first thing our team wanted to do was go in there and break it up.
Right.
But instead I held them back, and they all looked at me. I was like, give it a minute. And as soon as they saw that we weren't feeding into their fist fight and their anger and everything that was going on, they stopped. Because I wasn't giving that attention. And I said, you guys ready to go find your daughter?
Yeah.
Can you get over that for a minute and we can go find your daughter? Right. And we ultimately did. So maybe for a moment, it's so easy for us to match what they've got.
I love the idea, and I think that's
but I think strategically.
The version of what I'm saying is, my black brothers and my white brothers and my white sisters and my black sisters and all of us, that this is what I'm calling for. On every show that I do, with every post that I do, I'm like, let us stop being manipulated, because the fighting parents are the Democrats and the Republican leadership right now.
And what I hate, and this is why I'm so careful with everything that I say right now, right? Because the Bible tells us to do that too, right?
Right.
Because he says a tongue is like a double-edged sword. It can cut
Both ways.
So, and it can, because sometimes have you ever said something and you're like, man, I should have never said that.
No, I've never said.
An apology is 10 times harder for somebody to receive.
Yeah, because you've also broken trust when you said the thing you shouldn't have said.
Right. So what's really cool now is we have time to sit back and instead of say, I'm not a racist, I'm not a racist, I'm not a racist, I'm not a racist, just prove it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I haven't once, when I'm getting called racist online, I haven't once went back and said I'm not a racist.
Yeah.
Because my life is an example of me not being
and
a
that's
racist.
The best thing that we can do. For sure.
So I want to read this because I wanted to bring it out, but it says, when we are confronted with evidence that challenges our deeply held beliefs, we are more likely to reframe the evidence than we are to alter our beliefs. I'm going to say that again. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. When we're confronted with evidence that challenges our deeply held beliefs, we're more likely to reframe the evidence than we are to alter our beliefs. And that is 100% what I believe is happening in the world today, is that we are reframing it, because if the Republicans get too much power, then Trump's going to stay in power, and I hate Trump, right? And if the Democrats get too much power, we're going to be a socialist country. You know, the nonsense that goes on, the nonsense is necessary, but it used to be and should go back to a place where that fight in the middle is for the betterment of the people, right? That was what our founding fathers meant for us. And we're just trading in freedom after freedom. We're trading in on the blood of your brothers and sisters that you fought and died for our freedom. That is the crux of what we're fighting for. Freedom is the right to have your opinion and the responsibility to come to an agreement with the other side that moves the company forward. That's progress.
Yep.
And people call themselves progressives these days, and they're not doing anything to create progress.
Well, you know what I believe is I believe that if somebody is truly free themselves, they can never be held captive.
Amen.
And the thing that I talked about is we've created a victim mentality in a society through, and I'll go back to this again, I hate the whole idea of a participation award.
Yeah.
You have to teach people how to lose.
Yeah.
But we've never taught them. So now when they do lose, they think they're a victim. They lost because somebody gave them an injustice. They didn't lose because they just didn't win.
So would you say that being a victim is having the key to your own prison?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing, is when you're a victim and you're sitting there holding the key that you can walk out and say, I've never been a victim anymore.
Right.
You absolutely are your greatest,
And you're yelling at everybody, I'm in jail, I'm in prison.
Yeah, I'm
blah, blah, blah.
And
they're like, dude,
everybody's keeping me down and I can do this and I can do that. And this is the other part though. Think of this, because I have seen injustice.
Yes.
Here in the United States.
Right.
Like the whole reason that SERT is around is because there are other people that aren't doing their job. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
And I have seen people who we've recovered that have been hurt by establishments.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So, but this is the thing, is if I can teach somebody not to be a victim, then no matter how oppressed you are, you're still not a victim.
Right. I see that so much. Like Viktor Frankl always comes to the tip of my tongue. Right.
Okay.
He was a man that was, a very successful, bright Jewish man, got ripped out of his world, put into a concentration camp, and started to observe the world around him. And he eventually came to the conclusion that he said, I am more free than my captors. Because in conversations with guards and so on and so forth, they're afraid of this, they're afraid of that. And he was like, look, I'm free. Even in the worst scenario, starving to death, having to deliver my own friends into the ovens or watching them die next to me, and every one of us has the opportunity that has had something done to us where we could blame someone else for what happened. But the only cure is how we react to it and what we utilize in our own strength of will, which is what God gave every single one of us, was His will. was his will, his never ending, never quit. I'm going to be here forever. I'm not going anywhere kind of an attitude. Right. And I see so many of us accepting weakness, and they're ready with their story, and they're ready with the thing that happened to them. And the people that I love and admire, like you, are the people that took their injustices and the things that happened to them, and they turned them around into service, because now you can't be unbeaten. Right. You could be killed. Yeah. You can't be beaten. Yeah. You could get hurt or whatever it is, but you're not going to be imprisoned mentally. Right. Because you think freely, and no matter where you are, you're going to be free of mind. So, I don't know if this is what's funny about Civil War, but what I will tell you is funny about Civil War is that you, like you said, you started out the show speaking to this, is it's a war amongst its own people. We've forgotten that we are our own people. Yeah. And that's funny to me. It's funny to me that in 5 minutes you can have a conversation with somebody and go, oh, that person's not my enemy because they're black, because they're Hispanic, because they're white. That person has suffered the way that I have suffered. They have experienced life the way that I've experienced it. And now my heart goes out to them because I know that they've been in pain. And if somebody can take that pain and transfer it into power and not be silenced, right? The thing I keep telling everybody is you can't cancel me. How are you going to cancel me? Right. You can't, because what I want to teach every young black boy, every young black girl, every young Hispanic, every young white person, every young Asian, which they're getting taught a lot, very well in their own community, by the way, is I want to teach them that with increasing your mind, learning things, right? Experiencing and failing forward and building something called financial wealth, that's where you truly get a voice. Yeah. And you can utilize that. You can utilize that position. What I really liked is in an interview that I saw with Morgan Freeman. Mm-hmm. He said, you probably saw this because it's gone viral everywhere. Yep. But he said, how do you end racism? He goes, I'm going to ask you to stop referring to me as a black man. And I'm going to stop referring to you as a white man. And the end of it is exactly what we should be doing, and looking at an opportunity to I mean, everybody's used Martin Luther King Jr.'s quotes throughout all of this, except for this one of, judging somebody by the content of their character. Right. No matter where they are, where they come from, who they've been, all of those different things, because there are nice rich people and there are people that are jerks. There are nice poor people and there's poor people that are jerks. Right. Right. And so we need to just up our jerk meter and just say that person's a jerk. Right. And move on, you know? Or that person, I can get down with them, and that's really cool. And just not spend time with them and not give them time, life is too short. I've seen way too much death to spend and share my time with a jerk. Right. Right. 100%. I don't want it. And now what's happening is now we're going back to defining those things. Like one of the lists of demands that's coming out of that autonomous zone in Seattle is that now they only want black doctors for black people. Right. And they only want white doctors for white people, and they want to go back to a segregation. Look, we're all the same. Yeah. In and out. Yep. Like, that's what I loved about the Marine Corps and who we were in the Marine Corps is we just didn't see it. Right. I saw a meme that was going around from a Marine. Yeah. I mean, a badass Marine. And it was a picture, and it was white, it was a white, black, a couple of guys carrying a casket with a flag on. Yeah. And he said, was he white or black? And then underneath of it, said no Marine ever. Right. Well, the other thing that's always really funny, one of the best memes I saw was a drill instructor. It was I forget his name, but he was in just about every Marine movie. Oh, okay, yeah, like Full Metal Jacket. Yeah, that drill instructor. Yeah. I can't believe I can't remember his name, but he's like, I don't see black, brown, or white. You're all equally worthless. Right? That was the best one. And that's exactly, I think every drill instructor told that to every single Marine that went in. Right. And it did. It there was one color and it was green. Well, and that was let's talk about that a little bit, because that's a great experience that I think, part of why you go into the Marines is that so you get broken down.
Sure.
Right. And I've heard this story so many times is you want to break down all of the weakness. You want to take away the perceived strengths, and you want to break them down so that they can be rebuilt back up.
Yep.
And the problem with not holding people accountable for looting and burning and stealing and murder and all of the things that the problem is that they now are rewarded for the wrong activity. And you're going to see more of it if you keep rewarding it. What's going on in Seattle is wrong, right? What the arson was wrong. What happened to George Floyd was wrong. This thing that happened in Atlanta, people having been in the experiences now that I've been in, and I've been on the criminal side of life, and now I've been on, I'm not law enforcement, but, being in the situations that I have, things happen that fast. They happen that fast. And you see these types of scenarios, which everybody that can sit back from their couch, from the comfort of their couch, and go, oh, he was running away, but he was firing something that could have disabled him, and he already took a weapon off of that officer, which meant that if I now get disabled, I'm pretty sure he's going to come after my other weapon, which is more deadly, right? So, and all of that happened. They were the most polite. They were helping. They were kind. They were calm, all the way up until the gentleman decided to attack the two officers and to try to take their weapon. So,
it all sucks. And this is
it all sucks.
I used to be a defensive tactics instructor, and I was actually a expert witness when it came into defensive tactics or use of force situations. And I could speak to each situation, and what I think we should go back to and look at, which is the worst, is we've taken an entire people group now through this, and we've caused them absolute harm to where these guys aren't going to play the victim. They're just going to walk away.
Yeah. The cops.
Yeah. Because you notice I'm no longer a cop.
Right.
There was a point in time where it was enough for me.
Enough is enough.
It's enough for others.
Yeah.
And they're just not going to want to do it. So where do we now, let's do all of these more stringent backgrounds. And I actually think the more stringent backgrounds have gotten us into more trouble.
Right.
Because who do you have? By the end of the background, you've got somebody that's got zero life experience.
Right. And made zero mistakes.
Well, or he's just really good at lying.
Hiding
right?
them. Yeah. He can afford to hide those mistakes.
Right. Yeah. He's just really good at lying on the polygraph and hiding stuff. Right. And really back in my day, it was, I would tell the criminals, I would say, the difference between you and I is you got caught and I didn't.
Right.
And then I decided not to do it anymore.
Right.
And now I'm going to be firm but fair.
Yep.
So it's like one of those that's really difficult because we're hurting communities, right? Because now one person's hurt is now being transferred to another.
Yep.
And it is because of most people, and this is why I've chosen to be silent in a lot of things, because there's been probably 1,000. No, I'm exaggerating. Maybe 100 posts I've written and deleted.
Yeah.
And some I've posted and then deleted after because then it turns into somebody else's fist fight on my post.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's just dumb. I'm going to delete it because you guys are, talking ridiculously.
Right.
So, watching to see what it is, I think, we're probably coming to an end of time, right?
Yeah, we're getting there.
I think one of the coolest things, advice that I could give, if I could give a real short advice.
Please.
Love everyone. Choose your words wisely and sit back and wait. Because there are going to be opportunities. I think you had one post. That was the one that I said, watch the quiet guy in the room.
Right.
And then when it starts to go, get behind him.
Get behind that guy.
Because he's been observing everything and not getting himself in the mix.
Right.
And people are going to least likely expect him to be the most violent one when it gets down to when it actually takes time to get something done.
Yeah.
So take your time, pray. I believe in prayer. Seek counsel. I've always offered up, you can message me, or if you're a female, message my wife if you're concerned, how do you live in this time frame? What to do if you get caught in a riot? Any of those type of things. If you're practical, you can hit me up if you just need prayer. They got to see our battle board in there. If you're like worried or concerned, don't let worry overtake you in a time like this. Like, it's going to be okay. Even if, and I'm going to show my card here for a minute, even if Joe Biden got elected president and was the first president that could not speak an entire sentence legibly, it's going to be okay.
It's going to be fine.
It's going to be okay.
Right.
Like, even if Russia invades and we all become communists and have to wear funny hats, it's going to be okay.
Right.
Like, we're going to work through this. It's going to be all right. Right?
100%.
We're going to be all right.
I agree.
And maybe that's the funny part about Civil War is that you and I are laughing about that.
Right.
That we're going to be okay.
We're going to be
so
fine.
Get to that point to where there is humor in your life that you can look back and not take all of this so seriously that you get caught up into making the wrong decision and posting a black square on your profile picture.
Right. And crisis to crisis, those people. Okay, great. I love that. And, I have a different approach, obviously. And my approach is that the response, right? The response, if there is one, should always be love. Yeah. And calling right and wrong. And people know that, and I want their hearts to show. There's so many people in Misfit Nation, and you're, like you said, you are the most loving. You forgive people for stuff that I'm like, dude, I'm learning from you in the patience, the forgiveness area every single day. I'm learning from you. In that patience and loving people, I see things, miraculously happen. I watch things with my own eyes that are miraculous. And I think that now is the time not to engage in fight. So I agree with that part, to sit back, not engage somebody to say they're wrong. What I love about your idea is this, and I love you, and you can hate me all you want to. But I'm a warrior for right and wrong, and if you see wrong, I've seen it. There's no door that's going to keep you from getting that girl. No, there's no door. That you want to talk about violence. It's an immense amount of violence that needs to accomplish the end. And what I don't want to see is, I don't want to see the people that are being manipulated bleed because we didn't speak love loud enough when it was needed. And I do believe that people are in pain. And that's why I love Misfit Nation, because we welcome everybody. I've said probably 30 or 40 times now on shows where I wish I would have met George Floyd. I wish I would have met him, and I wish he would have met somebody from Misfit Nation. I wish he would have met somebody from your type of church background that just loved and said, okay, you want to change your life? Let's give you some support. Because I've heard stories that he tried to change his life, and the people that were around him were like, dude, you're old school George, you're not going to change, blah, blah, blah. And so I want us to all take very seriously, if it's my ending rant or whatever you want to call it, I want us to all take very seriously the fact that it is going to be okay. That is great advice. That is great words of wisdom. And you need to exercise your ability and your freedom to love deeper and to give more, and to not stoke the flames of hate by seeing things that are happening, that are being done by people that are pulling strings. Yeah. I believe that Americans, I believe that Chinese, I believe that Russia, I believe that most people love each other. I believe that most people are good people. Yeah. And I believe that when we're banded together and we see each other as loving, kind, sacrificial, I'll give you the shirt off of my back if I need one from you, if you'll give my family a meal. That's the America, that's the world that I've seen. And then I see the power mongers that try to separate that and end it. And I'm going to keep speaking out against it. I'm going to keep speaking up for Misfit Nation. I'm going to keep speaking up for the lost. I'm going to keep looking for them. I'm going to keep financing stuff. I'm going to keep doing everything that I do that I believe is easing suffering in the world. And, I just want to take the last few minutes to say, because everybody in Misfit Nation knows you. If you don't know him, follow him, find out the things that he does and that this organization does. And I just want to say from them to you, I love you.
Love you more.
It's impossible. It's a competition.
Hey, and you know what? If you got hate in your heart, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Learn to love yourself, because you don't love yourself if you got hate in your heart, and then you can love other people.
Amen.
And I love him more.
Yep. I love you more.
We're going to have a fist fight of love over here.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Take your week. Love more. Give more. Forgive yourself. Don't feel guilty for something that you shouldn't be carrying around. We got enough stuff that we've actually done to feel guilty about. And just love your neighbor. I mean, I think it's a really great line to finish with. Love your neighbor. And I love you. And I'll see you next week. Peace. Thank you.